It's 2020, 2020 vision.
So not everyone is comfortable, but one of the things that I do is I keep a journal. And when I get into, and so here's the thing, when you are looking at narrative, there are three things that usually happens. It's usually the story that I tell myself. It's the story that you may be telling others, and then there's the true story. So when you have a journal, the journal is really your sounding board. And when you're going through these major challenges in your life, when you can't understand the emotions that you're feeling, when everything seems like it's muddy and it's confusing and you just can't see the end, the journal allows you to sort through those emotions. So if you just sit for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long you need, and you just start with I feel, and if you say I feel crappy, then continue with those feelings. I feel crappy. I feel confused. I feel mad. I feel anger. I feel resentment. I feel jealousy. That is allowing you to express those emotions. You're not taking out on anybody else around you, so you're not impacting anybody else, and you're not hurting anybody else. But in writing down those emotions and expressing them in their way and allowing yourself to feel those emotions, which oftentimes I do, in a strange way, you're releasing those emotions and you're not holding them in. So if you end up retreating inside and holding those emotions, then all of a sudden you start with that narrative. It's the story that I'm telling myself, and you're causing yourself more damage than you are helping yourself. And so oftentimes, because you're carrying this load of emotion, you forget your filter, and certain things that you say, you lash out at loved ones or friends and so forth. And sometimes it's hard to retract that. And so as I'm developing certain characters and so forth, you sort of write characters that are going to be relatable to the audience that you're writing for. And so that they can see in themselves some of those characters. And then based on the experiences that you've wrapped that character into, they can walk away with the thing, oh, I see myself in this character. And then you start to ask, have I been acting that way?
One of the things that we got a question, thank you, Jody. She's asking, we're talking survivor and then the idea of victim. What about thriver? And I guess that's a character that can come into play, that somebody who taps into perhaps a drama, and they go, and this is one of the things in the book I talk about, it's a lot of people go from trauma to drama, and that drama plays them. Their narrative just becomes all about that trauma. Mm-hmm. And then there's others that take something that's tragic and take it to being magic, and then possibly become a thriver. They use it to empower them. I believe that Oprah would be an example of that, is that she took a tragedy as growing up, and then she's changed the narrative that she could be a change agent on this planet. And that's one of the things that I'm really inviting even today, is that people be visionary. Like, I love the fact that today we've got 5, maybe 6, maybe 7 visionary people, and you're about vision in changing the narrative. And you're doing a blog right now that is telling stories of young, is it primarily women, or what storytelling are you looking to really weave in changing the narrative?
So in addition to doing the writing, yes, I am working on a blog. And what I'm doing is I'm along my journey, when I meet young women, and it's really focused with women, and when I hear their stories, I'm allowing them and I'm giving them the platform to tell their story. Because everything that I do from a writing perspective, I want to ensure that it's aspirational and it inspires people to understand that if this individual has done it, they can do it too. And so I've gone through in the last couple of months last year, some emotional upheavals, And I've really found my center and allowing myself to understand more about who I am. And so going back to your point about thriving, so in allowing other women to have that platform to tell their story, it's inspiring other women who are going through struggles and feeling that, you know, they can't get past those struggles. And these are stories that will allow them to see that, yes, they can. My hope is that when they read these stories, they can see that whatever idea they have, believe their idea, trust their idea, and go with that idea, and have faith in achieving that idea. It's not going to be easy. And so what I'm building out is a platform in which at some point I will be able to spearhead and help not just women, but also young adults, because I write for young adults. But I want them to have a sense that they can achieve whatever they choose to achieve. I come from a place where my family, we didn't have a lot. And I made a determination that I was going to keep moving forward and succeed. I didn't allow the environment in which I raised to determine who I was. I made the choice that I was going to become more than what my environment was. And so that's thriving. It's making that resolve. And once you make that resolve, nothing else is going to really change you from that path. You've got that set focus and you're going to keep moving toward that focus. Yes, there are going to be things that throw you off that path, but it's going on that journey and that path, enjoying that journey and path, and taking those learnings and just get better and stronger with it.
That's one of the things that Get 2020 Vision is looking to engage the conversation, is that many people who have mental illness get stuck in a narrative. Many people who have depression, everyone's trying to get them out of depression. One of the things that I like about the way that we created the narrative around depression is talk to them about, congratulate them that they're great at the story of depression and they're an A+ student. And it shifts the narrative. Instead of having a force to try to get them out of bed, no, if you want to stay in bed, okay. And so there's a different pattern interrupt that can happen. And I think that that's what you're sharing a little bit about. Sometimes we have to interrupt our own patterns. What's nice about looking at our life as a block of 10 years, I've been asking people to reflect today back 20 years in their journey. And if you put you on the spot a little bit, if you reflect 20 years and then perhaps even project 20 years, are there one or two projects that you would like to share today that would be absolutely great as part of a narrative of writing from 20 years from now? What would be one or two types of projects that today you might be saying that might be planting the seeds of the next round of trees or next round of projects that you might play with?
So
I'm putting you on the spot quite a bit there, because we did, like, folks, we did have a couple of questions planned to talk a little bit. You had to ask Sueanne to project out 20 years, or do you find it easier to think back 20 years or project 20 years? That's, again, a curious question, because I'm not sure which way your mind works.
I don't dwell too much in what happened in the past. I take my learnings and make my adjustments. If I were to project 20 years from now, my dream and my goal, so I'm working from building a collection of writing works that have not only an aspirational piece to it, but I'm also looking to build out a, and this is my big, hairy dream, scary dream, is a healing center for women and young adults, where it's a safe place for them to not only heal, share their stories. It's a place where they can learn, build their skills, find what their inner strengths are, and then allow themselves the opportunity to not only discover themselves, but to understand their true gifts. It's a place where they can explore. And through that healing center, my hope is that they now become not only true to themselves, but they will go out and tell their stories to others and inspire others and let others know that whatever difficulties you may be experiencing, there are not only people out there to help you, but they will also support you. And in supporting you, they will give you that time and space that you need, not only to heal yourself, but to come to that understanding of what it is your purpose is in this world. So I truly feel that as I go on this journey, and in the experiences that I've had with my friends and people that I've met, there's a healing component, there is a supporting component to who I am, and the stories that I bring to the forefront, the narratives I bring to the forefront, as I take readers and build that relationship with readers. It's a journey of realization that wherever you start, irregardless of where you start, you have the ability to move from that victim role to not only am I a survivor, but I am possible. I'm here to fulfill my dream. And that's really important.
And again, by you planting that seed that you envision, you visualize a healing center, I guess it would be partly educational.
It would be educational, there would be training. And really the key is to help women become their own leaders as well. That's really key. Women leadership is really needed these days. And the more we inspire young women to become women leaders and change the dynamics of where we are in the world today, maybe we will have, my hope and my dream is that our world in 20 years is not only more collaborative, it's also more forgiving.
We have a quote that I started it off, and actually I posted it a little earlier because I went out to one of the visionary leaders, writers that I know, one of my favorite writers, because she wrote the book, 2020, or sorry, the 1111 Code, and her name's Hillary Carter. And a big shout out to Hillary again. I love what she is about. She taught me a lot about the ley lines of Mother Earth. She follows the 1111 Code as a way of living, and she's very aware of numbers. And I know it's funny, I believe that part of your journey right now is into a little bit of the sacred numbers, a little bit of tapping into some Thoth energy. And so I asked Hillary, because she plays in and out with technology, yet today, this was her quote, and I wanted to share it with everybody, but 2020, is that just another number? If you look at the world in 2020, you can see how the old way of life is crumbling. That has to happen to make way for the new. The 22 within 2020 is a master number. And the 2 zeros represent reset. This year represents 2020 vision, perfect vision. It's up to us to visualize the new world. Let's join in one consciousness at 1111 each day to create our vision of heaven on earth. Woo, gives me goosebumps.
That's, yeah. Well, you know, think about it. When you look at what's been happening with the pandemic, COVID has asked us to change our perspective on things. And it's asked us to step back, take an account of, you know, what's important to us. And I think there are people around the world who are seeing how important, you know, family connections are. And they're starting to see that when you're not able to be close to those that you love, the difficulties that follows. And it's helping us to really understand and cherish our humanness.
The experience I had with Hillary, which I think you might find fascinating too, because Hillary was part of a number of soul journeys we led. And again, she would use the numbers as a guide. And then when she starts to see these numbers, it's like a burst of awareness or consciousness every day.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when I'm working with people who are going through grief, can we shift your belief about grief? Well, guess what? One word can often have such a huge impact on changing the narrative. I did some work with Anthony Robbins, and when we had 9/11, a group of us were in Hawaii with him. And actually, Justin was less than 1 year old for that. Oh, sorry, he had just been able to start flying. So he flew from Singapore to Hawaii in first class. It was like, here's a little baby in first class. It was really hilarious. But when we worked with Tony Robbins in the 9/11 experience, there was this consciousness that we needed a way to contribute, make a difference, even though we're in Hawaii. And so one of the things he did immediately, he set up a blood bank. And so all of us could go and donate blood. He set up also prayer groups. All of us could take action and pray. So you set up actions where you're making a contribution. And so I love the idea right now of praying and loving, sending it. Yet this idea of one word going from a victim to a survivor. And I love what Jody added, going from a survivor to a thriver. And then with my dear friend Hillary Carter, and you see how I'm attempting to be a better storyteller. And I know that you can do some great edits, because that's another thing you do, is you edit movies or movie scripts. So working in collaboration with people. I actually had my crown chakra opened with Hillary in a ceremony we were doing in Cambodia. We had just finished a sacred circle of women and men doing a chant, a prayer, and a Shiva temple that was just being reopened. And at the end of it, I sort of went up like this, cracked my head, the blood started coming out. And Hillary, again, some people would go, oh, you okay? The Hillary was just saying, wow, a bloodletting. Thank you, David. And it was one of the most cool things, because again, when it cracked, it sort of hurt. But when the blood started coming out, it was just so warm. It was so nurturing. And it was just such an experience that when you build up that much energy, sometimes you actually have to have a release.
And what did you realize in that moment?
I'm blessed. I felt so blessed that, guess what? Maybe my crown is opening a little bit, that love, that connection. My belief about our interconnectedness, as I turn on my screen that sort of sends out all this beautiful colors. And it's so fascinating that right now in my life, it's for the pinks, the blues, the purples are flowing, which again is a little bit of that energy of love and renewal and shifting, continual shift, making shift happen.
So in discussing the numbers and sacred geometry, I'm at a point right now where I'm exploring a lot of these things and understanding what is that shift that's happening with me. So for me, this is a journey of understanding and opening up to what is the universe asking me to understand. So I have to be patient with myself. Again, this is things that I probably will explore in stories that start to develop. I am writing another book, but it will likely become a book series. But again, I'm taking all of these experiences and understanding, how is this reshaping my true story? We began by saying, what does narrative mean to me? And so it's also going to change the story that I tell others, because now that I'm reconnecting to, what is true for me, what I tell others, it's going to be completely different what I was telling family and friends 20 years ago. And so we can't really dwell on the 20 years ago. And if we go the 20 years that happened before, the past is the past, it's done. There's nothing that can be changed other than taking those lessons learned, taking the experiences learned, being honest with yourself. Being honest with yourself is like one of the most challenging things. There are things, as I said, through last year that I had to face about myself. And so when you're asking someone to, you know, if they're going through depression or if they're not understanding what they're happening, it's not something that they can switch on and switch off. They're going through a process, and you need.
Say there's both. Like, hey, funny,
Yeah.
I met a guy yesterday who's a doctor, and he said because of the work he's doing right now, there's sometimes he has to go and dance the jive with somebody, and sometimes he has to go and do salsa with somebody. Sometimes he has to do merengue with people. So the ability that we have to turn it on and off actually is part of our mechanism for survival. Yet it's also something that when we get too stuck in a narrative, it keeps us perhaps stuck. Yet that's a beautiful thing about breath, right? Is that through a breath, we can shift immediately. And I can visualize you, if you want to go do a 50-meter run, boom, you could be out of here, right? Even not even putting your running shoes on, or you could take your time, you could put your running shoes on, you could get the right outfit on and get ready. And so life's interesting that way, right? Is that sometimes these little changes in our life, we don't have,
there's no control there.
We have to pivot. And that's like one of the greatest lessons that Justin gave me, is that I was like one of these fathers who went to every single prenatal class. I was so looking forward to being a father for the first time. And then he said, nah, I'm coming out early. Deal with it.
Yeah, but not every...
Deal with it.
Yeah.
Thank you. And again, a big part of my relationship with Justin is thank you. Because today he does stuff, it's like, that's nothing compared to what you did to me 20 years ago. So it's allowed me to parent in a different way. And again, I'm inviting people to be aware of right now, you could have the most tragic thing in your life happen to you, and it could knock you out. It can knock you into unresourceful. It can put you into a pit. Or that process you talked about, I love it. Okay, I really respect the process too. Yet, guess what? Sometimes it's a decision, right? It's decisions made in a heartbeat, quoting a Tony Robbins phrase.
Yes,
now,
but
the
we
remnants,
have...
the remnants, the DNA, the cellular memory in our body, that's actually another fascinating area that your healing centers in the future, there is a trauma that our body has. There's a mental muscle, there's a memory in our cellular structure that we might think we get over it in a heartbeat, yet perhaps the processing does take time, energy, and perhaps even divine timing.
Yeah, because you have to remember, if you're experiencing certain levels of trauma throughout your life and it has a building effect, and you know how some people will say, oh, they just snapped or what have you, you have to take into account what that person has gone through their life. You know, there are so many different emotional things that happen, and so it becomes a compounding effect. And so that's where empathy comes in. You have to really step into where that person is and understand that, you know, if they're having an emotional episode and they're not understanding why, they're not realizing it is a compounding effect of all the things that they had experienced, and no one has really taken the time to explain that to them. And then when they are now in a safe environment and they're trusting the people that they're with and are allowed to explore those hurts and those pains and all those confusing moments in their life, it's a release for them. And it helps them to understand that not only are they not alone, that there are other people who are going through these things with them. So the narrative that you tell yourself, oftentimes when you're in that mind frame, is often negative. And so when you're thinking about pivoting and that instant decision, again, it comes from that perspective of the narrative that you're telling yourself. If you have a negative, if your narrative is negative, you're not going to be able to pivot that quickly. If you have a positive narrative, those instant split-second decisions is possible for you. And But again, life comes at you in different ways. So you may be going through a period where things are positive, and that one thing all of a sudden lands you, you know, knocks you right over, as you said, and all of a sudden you're immobilized. You're like, I've never been here before. I don't know how to deal with this. And likewise, somebody who's taken a really traumatic experience, whether it's abuse or alcoholism or what have you, there is something within them that says, I'm going to survive this. I'm going to beat this. I'm going to get better. And it's in, as I said, it's in that resolve of saying, I am worth it, that you're able to work through the traumas that you have. And as you start to connect with your mind, your spirit, your body, and understand the consciousness in which you carry these things, and you're able to let go of these things, because a lot of it is letting go. I've had to do a lot of letting go in a lot of things that I've gone through. And not only is it a relief, but the growth that you feel, and the sense of confidence you feel, and the sense of awareness that you feel, you can't replace that, because it's all you. You're healing for you. And when you heal for you, you're better for other people around you.
I like that. Again, a big part of sharing the personal stories in Get 2020 Vision were about being vulnerable, to share a couple of the approaches that helped shift. And if it's shifting a word, for some people that could really be the trigger. Letting go of a word that I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough, letting it go and become I'm worthy. And that can be so powerful. I'm reminded of probably one of the biggest influences in my life in the last decade has been a gentleman called Harley Springer, and from Australia. And here's a big burly gentleman who introduced me to poetry. And so I've written a number of poems and I've put it in Get 2020 Vision. And I truly believe that if men could write poetry, they're going to have a shift in their way that they communicate, not only with themselves, yet with their partners, with their kids, with other men. And I do find it fascinating that women have been really moving forward with compassionate leadership. I'm a big fan of compassionate leadership. I think the biggest thing I've learned in the last 18 months being an elderly caregiver is compassion to my mom and my dad as they evolve every day. And compassionate leadership is that energy for me. It's that nurturing, slow down, breathe, be patient, because it's passion converted with love and patience would be perhaps even my definition these days. And so that's such a key component in providing enough air from the old pattern that was so tightly wound and so energetically charged that there wasn't any room for it. It was like kill or be killed. It was like fight or flight. Like there was no pause there. And so poetry for me has been one of those pauses that then you do it. Then it brings in a whole realm of giggles and brings in a whole realm of finding it funny. And then there can even be a little bit of romance, and you can write something that is a little goofy. That's
Yes.
lightness that I believe is a big part of us moving forward from 2020, is that if you've had some trauma, if you've had some losses, if you've had some depression, breathe into it and breathe through it, as opposed to avoid it, suppress it, drug yourself up so you can't even be functional. What's been, again, because I wrote down the 10 top stress things that we experienced. And guess what? 2018 to 2020, I had 9 of them. Woohoo!
Oh.
And so I had 9 of them, and I addressed them in Get 2020 Vision. And that's what's really been great, is that my life, technically in a test, I've been a high-level stress guy, yet that's where this new way of seeing, and I think when we talk and invite people today, even come and do beginner eyes. I've had a wonderful group of friends, Bill and Caney and Dolly, have been playing so much, experimenting with new eyes, beginner eyes. And for us, like we're well, you're a little younger than I am, yet well into my 50s and 60s, it's going to be beginner eyes again.
Yes.
So share a little bit visionary with, again, I love that we're talking about vision and you're the narrative lady, and it's shifting that narrative. It's beginner eyes. It's like, there's so many things that are new beginnings for people in their 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s. It's wow, exciting.
Beginner eyes. So for me, as I said, or sort of said before, I'm seeing my children differently. They are now adults, and so I now have to change my narrative with them. Instead of seeing them as the 2-year-olds that they used to be and the babies that they used to be, I need to now address them as the adults that they are now. So that narrative is changing. The other narrative that is changing is me as an individual and as a woman. So I'm going through a new life change in my life with menopause. And so there are things that are happening with me that it's changing. So that narrative now I have to explore and understand. There's the narrative of changing dynamics in personal relationships. And so again, it's just that exploration. And really it's asking myself, what is it that I want now? And it's an exploration of what is this new chapter in my life now that I've raised these 2 individuals to become self-sufficient adults, and what is it that I want for my life now? And so I've always had a passion for writing. Words has been my core, my center. Releasing and expressing myself through words has allowed me to express the things that I feel and know that I'm going to be okay. Everybody needs a way of releasing. And so when you find what that gift is, what that strength is, whether it's sports, and you can create your stories through sports as well too. And whether you are a master of words, whether you are a cook, there's a story behind you becoming a cook. You have maybe stories of being in the kitchen with your grandmother or your grandfather, and they're teaching you how to make, the secret family meal. But you end up weaving a story behind that because you've got those memories that are attached to having that time with your elder. And that time with your elder, whoever it is, or even if it's a mentor, that few minutes with that individual, it gives you such a grounding as to who you are, and it roots you into who you become and what you value, and those principles that you are not going to shift. Some principles will shift as you grow, as you mature, as things become experienced. But these are the things that makes you become the person that you are supposed to be.
I love that. And one of the things that is challenging for people is even asking, what do I want? Because for most of our life, we've been giving. And so even that question, it raised a little Tinkerbell for me, because what do I want? Or in the book, and this is a beautiful thing, is that we don't only talk about mental illness, I actually talk about, which you've heard and gave a little bit of stamp of approval on, this GPS system, and this idea of the gratitude, the purpose, the passion, the service. And so there's that element of, does the service draw the best out of us? And that's the part that I've talked to people in cross-cultural communication lately. And in fact, it was pretty funny. They couldn't get the concept of I'm being drawn to serve. And that's been so beautiful that when I'm doing work with the elderly right now, there is this patience that comes out of me that I laugh at myself because, again, Bill, my buddy who we used to play ice hockey from age 5 until 12 together. It's like me being patient. No, I'm like the Tasmanian devil. That's my puck. Get it. And it's like now I'm breathing in with my yoga as my dad, who just broke his femur, starts to walk again. And it's like patience. And so it's really been an inner hilarity and humor, yet providing it with compassion and sometimes passion. Yet there's more laughter going on in this household right now in ways that my mom playing with her bird, my dad looking like a pirate, and there's a joy there. And one of the things I wanted to get our listeners is just, and it's one of the things that we've talked about, is being grateful in the moment. And again, I realize that you and I can bounce it back and forth and actually just talk about some of the things we're grateful. Yet I'm going to ask any of our listeners, just type in 1 or 2 things that you're grateful for, and we'll just see how the energy will shift. And so let's just do, you and I can go back and forth, but I'm asking Bill and Dolly, type in something you're grateful for in the chat so that we can, again, create a little bit of gratitude vortex. Because this is the type of thing that if you have a senior center or a healing center, these vortices of gratitude are a great way to tap into creativity and confidence and self-esteem. So why don't you share 3 or 4 things you're grateful for? I'll say 3 or 4. We'll ask our viewers right now, just type in on the chat, what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for today. I'm grateful to be alive. And I'm grateful for the love of my children. I'm grateful for my health, and I'm grateful for the beautiful experiences that I've been having. I'm grateful for this blessed life that I have. I truly am.
A funny one for me is I'm so grateful to be in Canada right now. I'm so grateful for, again, my mom and my dad. The biggest thing that makes me tear almost is I'm grateful for every meal I eat with my parents. There's a wonderful guy, Reno Balbo, and we were in an airport. I think we were in either Greece or in Egypt. And he just said to me one day, he goes, he bought double servings. And I looked at him and said, what the are you doing? He goes, this tastes like my mom's cooking. And he just said to me, oh, that's the one thing I miss most is eating my mom's cooking. And I almost teared up again. So when I'm now with my mom and my dad and we're having meals, I'm just like, laughing and giggling because I'm so blessed at this moment, at this time, to have a meal with my parents. And so there's these things that we got some grateful for family, grateful for friendship, grateful for learning, grateful for parents, grateful for introduced to wisdom, introduced to family, grateful for friendship, health, the love of family. Can you imagine, like every day you allowed that to be part of your energy work, your prayers, your 3 times a day, 5 times a day, that you're actually putting yourself in that space by choice? Talk about a good habit.
Well, it not only that, it just puts you in a good place. And so when you're in that good place, because we all want to be happy, and so you're sharing that grace and that happiness with others around you.
Because I love interrupting a little bit. I hope I'm
That's okay.
How's my man speak going? I got like accused of, Dave, that's man speak. I'm not even sure what man speak is. I lived in Asia for 33 years. So
you're fine. I'm
am
not
I doing
thinking...
much mansplaining? Again,
no.
Because
no, you're sharing your experiences, which is what narrative is about.
Beautiful.
You know,
because when you said everyone wants to just be happy, again, I actually have a bit of a battle with that one, because sending that out is that I don't want to be happy all the time. Actually, I love my emotions. When I'm sad, I love that my eyes leak. When I'm angry, I love to feel that an injustice is occurring and to harness it and then to breathe into it and then maybe come up with a thoughtful question. So happiness, I believe, is a little overrated.
Mm-hmm.
because it's not what I want to experience 24/7. I'm asking, inviting, and this is the thing about the book talks about, is that there's a benefit for each of those emotions. The challenge is if we're suppressing them and we're not being authentic with them, then it buggers up our GPS system. Because
So
I
when you're
think that,
going, yes, and when you're going through those experiences and you're experiencing them, ultimately you want to be in a good place. And when you're in that good place, you're more open to conversation. And so that's where the happiness factor is, right? Nobody wants to be around anyone who's grumpy all the time, right?
actually,
So,
misery breeds companionship, right?
mhm.
So there's a lot of people who create misery circles.
Yes, they do. What I'm saying though is that if we're talking that narrative, if your story that you're telling yourself that I'm miserable all the time, and you're in that group that agrees with you but being miserable, you're not likely going to want to sit with that group who is constantly miserable, because you want to hear something that's positive. And as much as you may want to help that individual, there's really nothing you can really do at that point unless they're willing to move from that point of being miserable.
Again, I love what you just said, and I don't agree fully, which I love that's your perspective, because what it made me smile was I remember a funny movie which was called Grumpy Old Men, which is a comedy. I think Walter Matthau was in it and Jack Lemmon, and so like the funny thing is that grumpy old men can be switched too. Like my dad traditionally is a grumpy old man, and lately he has been giggling more, and like he even like I come up and say hello daddy, and he goes hello Davy, and it's like he's like energetically sparring, yet from a higher loving manner, which again yesterday he was playing with the bird outside, which is for someone to watch like, is that guy out there playing with a bird on his shoulder? And so yeah, he's a new pirate. So it's like, but he likes it. He's got the new hairstyle. It's like 10 times longer than mine. And it's an interesting experience to see him.
Yeah, but I know when I was going through my personal upheavals last year and the year before, I really did not like being in that place. I just felt it was just not only expending a lot of energy, it just wasn't me. And so I needed to find a way to be at peace with it. And and I started to notice, like, around me, the family members around me were also being impacted by it. And so that's what I mean. It's like, yes, we can't deny our emotions. We have to allow ourselves to be angry. We have to allow ourselves to be, frustrated and and acknowledge that. And I'm not saying that we're supposed to suppress those emotions. That's part of what being humans is. It's just, you can't, I feel that knowing what I went through, it's just not a place I want to be all the time. It's too heavy. And I prefer to be in a place where I'm sharing inspiration, where I'm being supportive and reciprocating that support as well.
What in the book, what I really, again, for those who are listening or watching, go to that get2020vision.net. I'm supposed to do the commercial. Where is it? Again, for those who are on it, they already know, but a little commercial. Ooh, do it this way. Yeah, get2020vision.net, Facebook Live, share it with friends, bring a few more people in, encourage them to go and click the button. I realize that some of you are having challenges buying the book right now. That is part of the wonderful world of technology. If you're going to play in technology, bring a quote from Steve Jobs: fail fast, fail frequently, fail forward. Thank you, Steve. And so I'm supposed to do some commercial breaks.
Okay.
One of my advisors was saying, as part of my, I have a storyboard, since we've been talking about storytelling too. I created a storyboard here, and it's got these lovely, I'm supposed to stand up, somebody told me, but I am playing with the green screen. And that's something, again, folks, this technology, play with it, experiment with it. It's not necessarily perfect. It's not broadcasting levels that you've got 12 editors. It's natural, it's authentic, it's fun, hopefully. And so I'm sharing some of the tips for that too, because in the last 3 weeks, I've probably done about 300 experiments, and many of them haven't been going very well. Some of them have, some of them haven't. So I really
But see, that's a beautiful story, David, because you're telling the story of how you're experiencing these things, but you're learning from that experience, and that's what's wonderful, right?
And I believe that's been the greatest thing, is that I've been sharing it with people that might not have done it by themselves, and they would have stayed stuck, as opposed to playing and learning and being able to experience new eyes. There's a lady Dolly has brought in who's an amazing ceramic artist. And if she's in there today, Sueanne, like, she had me awed yesterday when she showed some of her ceramic artistry, and then the bigger pieces she's had to do, and the government actually wanting to get her to do bigger pieces, and the fear that she experienced. I think it's brilliant. In fact, if we can work more with the people in their 60s and 70s and 80s to inspire them to go and tap into their inner creativity, their inner artist, their inner musician, I feel that that's a beautiful narrative to play with.
Exactly. So in that instance, the creation of the pottery is the story, and how that particular piece of work came to be. So that's where that visionary narrative comes to be, because as the artist is molding and shaping that piece of pottery, there's a story behind why that piece of pottery is taking the shape that it's taking. And so, artists are always invited to explain what inspired you to create this piece in the way that you did. And again, it goes back to the experiences of what the artist was trying to evoke in that particular piece. And it's the same for writing. As a writer, when you're going in, sometimes when I start writing, I have an idea of, this is where I want this story to go. But sometimes as you start developing things, your story pivots, and you come up with a different perspective of the story. So sometimes, and that's what's really beautiful about visionary narrative and writing in general, is that you may be starting down, one path of the story, but then as the characters come to life, it becomes a different story for you. And that's life in general. You start in one place, but as certain paths come before you, and you make a choice in one of those paths, the story changes and it unfolds, and it just becomes more enlightening for you. And it could become uncertain for you. It could become fearful for you. But in the end, there's still a learning that comes from that. And so, as a writer, as a visionary, in my visionary narratives, my hope is that when I build this collection of works, is that, yes, every story is going to have its own individual theme, but ultimately every story will connect to each other from a perspective of peace and a respect for humanity.
We had a comment that suggesting that Sueanne would be a very good teacher of writing, and should have some writing classes where Sueanne can take people through the iterations of writing. So thank you very much, Jody, for that nice comment.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
She asked me to put your name down, and actually the books that you've written, and so your blog, and so those are fantastic comments. We'll put them later if that's it's okay for you.
Okay.
Fantastic. We just had Deb join us, Deb Mayberry, the founder and co-host of Pray Love, who is an amazing human being, lately in her 50s, another baby boomer. She just got certified as a spiritual psychotherapist. She is a best-selling author. She works as a musician, or she's a musician also. She's a social entrepreneur and somebody who I've known, and we actually met in Bali a number of years ago, and our paths have crossed. Like, I'd come back to Toronto, she would be one of the 2 or 3 people that I would look to connect with, just because. And we met up like Yorkdale Shopping Mall, and we met in like malls, like different parking lots, and we'd talk, and because we'd want to interview each other and we'd want to catch up with each other. And so now that we're doing Pray Love, and I also, a big shout out to Sherry, who absolutely love being, and somebody who just is so vibrant and wants to, again, and does make a difference in people's lives. So we will be seeing Deb in a little while. She'll be joining us at 9, and we'll be talking a little bit about, from her, vision of creativity. And we've got people who I feel have great vision. What I love about vision, though, and why 2020 vision makes so much sense to me, is that little exercise we just did about gratitude. That's the most important vision. Right now, your vision, 2020 vision, focus on gratitude. And when one does, we're at a vitality, we're at a resourcefulness, we're at a energy that can deal with the external world, because we're so quick to see the gratitude in whatever the universe sends our way. Would you agree with that? How's that for a narrative?
So are we focusing on gratitude itself, or okay, so I'm just going to be a little selfish right now. So my story, since I can remember as a child, I've always been the type of person that I put other people first. I always didn't really put myself first. And in putting other people first, I felt a sense of service to others, a sense of caring, a sense of sharing. Sharing is very important to me. I didn't ever feel the sense that everybody, because I was sharing with them, that they had to give me something back. No, anything that I gave freely, openly, and honestly. And so I've always had an inner sense of gratefulness, and this comes from my beautiful mother and my, amazing dad, and the family that I have around me. There was always this sense of respect for self and respect for others. And in keeping that respect for self and respect for others, I found that I had an ability to not only connect with people, but to really go where they are. And in going where they are, it requires you to be an active listener. And when you're an active listener, it means you need to be quiet and allow them to share what they need to share. And what has surprised me in this is that a lot of the stories they've shared are quite personal, which I truly did not expect. And that has allowed me to be grateful for the ability to care for people and care for their stories. So when we spoke earlier about my vision of Epoch Effect, my healing center, it really comes from caring for other people's stories and wanting to give them the opportunity to really realize that they can become who they truly want to become. As I mentioned to you, we started as a family from a place where we didn't have a lot. And yet my family, my parents, still was able to raise 3 kids, still have a shelter over our heads, put clothes on our backs. I really did not have a concept of, rich versus poor, because in my mind, we were eating, we were healthy, everybody was happy. So rich and poor did not exist in my world as a child. Differences culturally and racially and spiritually, religiously, did not exist in my world. Even though I was raised as a Catholic, I was raised to accept people as they are. I have an innate sense of accepting people as they are. And so when you're having those conversations with people, and when I'm having those conversations with people, I truly believe that people do sense that they feel safe when they are having those conversations with me, because I'm not going to be standing there in judgment of them. And so going back to your point, David, about being grateful, I'm grateful that I have the ability to meet people where they are. And I'm grateful for having the ability and recognizing the gift of writing to tell the stories in a way that will resonate, especially with young adults. Because really, if I had somebody as a young adult who was, encouraging me to really go after what I truly wanted, it would really have made a difference. But I had to go through that path and that journey for myself. I had to find it myself. My parents were growing up in a world where, they had to work and to make sure that, we were safe and that we were taken care of. And it was an adjustment for them. And so I'm not saying to spoon feed our young adults, but it's to give them that sense of, don't get caught up in all of the stuff that you see outside of you. Really go inside and not be afraid of feeling like you're going to be ridiculed, because that's what they're dealing with. They don't want to be different. They don't want to stand out from the crowd. They want to know that they belong to the group that they belong to. And that's what we all go through as young adults. But sometimes you do have to sacrifice the fact that, yes, recognize that you are different. Different is okay. It's just that it takes some people longer to accept being different. And at some point you will find the people in your life that accept and appreciate and are grateful for the differences that you bring.
Wonderful. You know what I'm really very happy about right now is
What?
You are really present to your words. You are allowing your throat chakra to express. It's not about being loud and it's about being present and meticulous and articulate, and reminds me of the 4 agreements of being precise with your words. And I really appreciate it. And I want to say thank you so very much for joining me today. And
thank you so much. And I wish you all the very best with your launch.
Should have done, but hindsight is 20.